Great. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Startup Global's Industry Advisory Circle for Digital Health and Healthcare Businesses. I am Miriam Wedge, the program lead for Startup Global and Startup Women here at Startup Canada. To begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that the land on which I am on today is located on the unceded and traditional territories of the Mi'kmaq, Wolastoqiyik, and Wabanaki nations. I also acknowledge with respect the diverse histories and cultures of all Indigenous peoples. I encourage you to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional territory that you are residing on today as well. Startup Canada is a national nonprofit that is the gateway to Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem. We are here to connect entrepreneurs with the support, community, and tools that they need to build a successful business here in Canada. Since launching in 2012, Startup Canada has has grown to support more than 130,000 entrepreneurs annually and an ever-growing community of ecosystem partners from coast to coast to coast. And Startup Global is one of Startup Canada's flagship programs that supports entrepreneurs looking to export and expand their businesses internationally. From webinars and industry advisory circles like today's to export readiness resources and exclusive offerings from our partners, this free program will help you build an international market entry strategy and plan. These monthly industry advisory circles will provide attendees with a deeper understanding of trends and best practices in their sector and will leave with actionable takeaways and resources that they can implement into their business. I would like to take a moment to thank our co-presenting partners, UPS and Export Development Canada, or EDC, as well as our program partner, Forum for International Trade Training, or FITT, our ecosystem partners, Scotiabank and Startup TNT, and our community partners that we will provide a full list of in the chat here. Speaking of our partners, we're joined today by both Rowena Tsang and Laura Ragudo. Laura is from FITT and Rowena is from UPS. So they'll provide some quick opening remarks as well on their organizations, and I'll pass it over to Rowena first.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rowena Tsang. Thank you for the warm introduction. I'm the Segmentation Director for UPS Canada. And as you know, a major cornerstone for UPS is really serving the global healthcare needs and our customers in that healthcare space. In the last few years, we really focused on 6 areas: cold chain, clinical advanced therapies, labs, diagnostics, pharma, home care, and medical device. As you know, the healthcare supply chain or the health chain is very complex. That is why we continue to invest in new technology and infrastructure to reduce that complexity. The health chain is supported through integrated network, managed transportation, customs brokerage, healthcare logistics and distribution, and ocean and air freight. Some specific advancements that have been made for the healthcare providers include the UPS Premier Service in 2021, of which we launched in Canada, and it's designed for time and temperature sensitive shipments. It's a whole white glove service with 24/7 monitoring and tracking capabilities, along with intervention, really putting these packages in the fast lane. Furthermore, many providers are leveraging our final mile delivery solutions to help improve that patient experience, leveraging UPS My Choice, which empowers the patient to design the final delivery experience, as well as our access points. It's a safe haven for products that needs to be protected from the changing climate. And now with Saturday delivery and coming a follow my driver, similar to Uber Eats, and 2-hour delivery window, patients, technicians, nurses will get their package faster with real transparency. To give you a sense on how we helped using some of the solutions, I will include a link for a case study for Panthera Dental, and I'll put that in the chat in a little bit. Panthera Dental is a company committed to designing and manufacturing custom-made restoration for sleep breathing disorder solutions. So check them out in that link, which, like I said, I'm going to provide, and you'll be able to see how our partnership has really helped them grow. We believe that UPS moving forward will take a very front seat in making sure that we are one of the healthcare providers' supply chain solutions for the global standpoint. Thank you. I hope you all enjoyed today's sessions, and we look forward to collaborating with you soon.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Rowena. I'll pass it over to Laura next.
All right. Hello, everyone. So I'm Laura Ragudo. I'm the Partnerships and Community Lead at FITT. So FITT is the Forum for International Trade Training. We're headquartered in Ottawa, but we're global in scope. So we are the global leader in that specific training that deals with international trade. So whether you're selling your products across international borders or procuring products or services, we provide the training, everything from A to Z, to help you navigate that complex world. So feasibility of international trade, trying to assess whether it's feasible. Are you in a position to start exporting or expanding into international markets? Do you have the capacity? Do you know which your target market is and how to assess that? All the way from that to international trade finance. How are you going to get paid? How are you going to mitigate your risks? And all the way through to international sales and marketing. So we have a program which is 6 full courses as well. We offer workshops and on-demand courses, and it's all geared toward you, the entrepreneurs, to help you expand into international markets, because all studies have shown that companies that export are more successful. They're around for longer. So I know that Miriam will probably drop a link. We have, as program partner for Startup Canada for 2024, we have a discount that we're offering to startups in your ecosystem to take some of the training, because we truly believe that trade doesn't happen without trade capable people. So in order to succeed in international markets, you need a specific skill set, or nominate a champion within your company to upskill, to do that professional development that will enable you to navigate some of these complexities, as I mentioned before. So that's just a little bit about me.
Thank you so much, Laura. Isabel did share that link in the chat, but if anyone was just joining, I can share it again a bit later in the discussion. But thank you so much for that. Okay, so a little bit more about today's session and what to expect. So today is for digital health and healthcare businesses. We're really excited to have you here, so thank you for taking the time to join us. Before we head into our discussion today with our guest speakers, I'll take you through what the next 2 hours or so will look like. So in a moment, I will invite each of our attendees here to do a quick speed introduction of yourselves. We have about 15 minutes to do this, but we can see how far that takes us. So definitely you're welcome to be on camera today and to really participate in the discussion. So if you have your camera on right now, I'll assume that you're comfortable introducing yourself to the group. And once we're ready to do their intros, I'll pass it over to you all to introduce yourselves one by one. And then after the introductions, I'll introduce our guest speakers. They'll do some quick 5-minute expert talks to learn a bit more about them and their organizations. And then right after that, I'll pass it over to Isabel, who is our moderator for today, and she will moderate the full discussion. So we do have some questions drafted in advance, but if you do have questions for our speakers today, we really encourage you to participate, ask your questions in the chat, or use the raise hand function and ask your question on mic. We're really excited for that. And then the last section of the session today will be some networking breakout rooms. So this will take about 25 to 30 minutes at the end. We'll be putting about 3 to 4 people in a breakout room and do quite a few of these different breakout rooms. These will last about 10 minutes each, and then we'll rotate them so that you have a chance to meet as many people as possible on the call today. And this is really an opportunity for you to network with each other. You're free to use the time as you like, but we can also provide a quick prompt question when we get ready for these later on in the session. Really encourage you to stay for this session as well, or this section of the session as well. It's really interesting, and it's always good to get to connect with people that are in your industry. Okay, so I will get started with some attendee introductions. So once I call your name, you can tell us your name, where you're located, and a little bit about your business and what you're looking forward to learning today. So first up, I think I see Sohail. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm the CEO founder of Living in Silico, a small biotech in Brampton, Ontario. And what motivated me to come here is to learn more about digital health, especially since we're using in silico tools. We really want to export our SaaS system to America, to different countries in Europe.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And I think I met you at the pitch competition in Kitchener-Waterloo that we had recently.
Yes, that was amazing. I couldn't make it
nice
to
to
the,
see you.
yeah, I couldn't make it to the following event, but I tried to go online,
Yeah,
and that hub was really nicely positioned and made.
awesome. I'm glad that helped. Amazing. Next up, I see Paolo.
My name is Paolo. I'm the CEO and founder of Emerge, based in Toronto. We are a small health tech company based out of Toronto. We're pretty much working on disrupting the EMR practice management industry. It's a big one. We've been in business since 2021. We have a little bit over 100 physicians using our platforms right now. And it's pretty much an AI powered practice management / EMR system for physicians, and we have the patient side of things as well. I'm excited to be here today to learn more from you all. And right now we are only in Ontario, looking to expand to other provinces and other countries soon. So I'm excited to hear what we're going to be learning here today. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paolo. Next up, I see Azadeh, and it's funny, we have a speaker today also named Azadeh, but Azadeh from Orchid Analytics.
Hi, thank you. Good to meet everyone. I'm Azadeh, founder and CEO of Orchid Analytics. We basically design algorithms for operations and management in healthcare system, mostly hospitals. Think of flow of anything, as at this point it's mostly patients, and we're focused on surgical management. So we follow the patient from waitlist all the way down to discharge, and we're able to optimize the system and increase the throughput of the operating rooms. We're based in Barrie, Ontario, so a little bit north of Toronto, and basically we want to expand to different markets. So happy to learn. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That sounds great. Next up, I see Kim Jacob.
Thanks, Miriam. Hi, I'm Kim, and I run a translation agency. I'm not a healthcare company, but we support businesses in the health and wellness space, particularly those that are trying to reach the global market and need to consider translation of website, marketing collateral, packaging. So I'm here for that purpose because we partner with lots of different agencies, and I'm happy to answer any questions anybody might have around translation and reaching new cultural audiences.
That's awesome. Yeah, one of the questions that we like to ask during these sessions is definitely around like cultural, like new cultural things to look out for when you're expanding to different countries. So that's amazing. Thank you so much, Kim.
Thank you.
Thank you. For those that just joined recently, we're just doing some quick attendee introductions. So if your camera's on, I'm assuming that you're comfortable introducing yourself. And next up, I see Manmohan. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm Manmohan. We run healthcare business by the name of RuCare and also Brave Med School. So we focus on overall well-being, and we run different programs for adults, for executives, for parents, and also some de-addiction programs and any specific disease management, for example, weight management. And we also run some educational courses. We are based in Brampton, and we recently started a new office in Oakville as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Next up, I see Cassie.
Hello, my name is Kathy Zajac, and I'm the founder of Kathy Zajac Wellness. We offer luxury concierge healthcare. So clients can work with us online, or we can come to them in person anywhere in the world. So we offer advanced testing, telehealth, personalized supplementation, and plans for each client based on their healthcare needs. And we typically focus on metabolic, inflammatory, digestive health concerns are typically what most of our clients struggle with, including like weight loss and yeah.
So thank you so much for introducing yourself.
Thank you.
Next up, I have Agnes.
Hi, thank you very much. Thank you for opportunity. My name is Agnes, and as some of you already know, I'm a CEO of WWS. It's the company established in Calgary, and we support startups mainly from Europe, mainly from eastern part of Europe. And within our pocket, we've got two companies that are in the health sector. One of them is developing the ovulation medical device. So I think it could be very fruitful and important meeting today for me. Thank you very much. And of course, if anyone wants to contact me, I'm on a LinkedIn. I can give you my email. So please feel free to contact, and we can talk also bilateral. Thank you.
That's a great reminder too. Everyone is definitely welcome to interact in the chat and provide your LinkedIn links to stay connected after the session as well. Thank you so much, Agnes. Next up, we have Milad. Hoping I'm pronouncing that right as well.
Everyone, my name is Milad. I'm the founder and CEO of Zonistech Incorporation. So we are based in Edmonton, and we specialize in a range of medical electronic products. For our flagship product, we launched the crowdfunding campaigns like 2 years ago, and we could acquire customers from very different countries all around the world, literally. But then right now we are selling the products in North America, and we are looking to expand our reach outside Canada and United States. And of course, it's a very challenging matter, and it has a lot of ups and downs. So looking up for advice, insights, and strategy how to do that. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then last on my screen, I see Simeen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Simeen Patel. I'm a fractional product leader with background in health tech. I've worked with companies who have virtual digital, products or programs, and worked with companies that have built remote patient monitoring and so on. So I'm here to offer help to all of you lovely healthcare startup founders. Ping me on LinkedIn, but I go by the same name, Simeen Patel. And I think, Miriam, it will be lovely if we could have everyone's LinkedIn, this in the chat, so that if offline people want to connect, it'll absolutely help. So nice meeting you all, and look forward to this session. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And yeah, feel free to share your LinkedIn profiles in the chat, and then I can always send a copy of the chat tomorrow as well after we do our wrap up from the session. I can email everybody if you'd like to have a physical copy of that. Amazing. So if anybody else wants to introduce themselves, please feel free to do so in the chat. But I'll get started now with introducing our speakers for today. So before that, just quickly, after the expert talks that we'll hear from our two speakers today, you're definitely welcome to ask some questions to our speakers. So use the chat function, the Q&A, or you can also raise your hand. I think it's in the React function at the bottom of the menu bar in Zoom. But without further ado, I'm very honored to introduce our speakers for today. So first up, we have Azadeh Dastmalchi, who is the CEO and co-founder of VitalTracer, and she actually just won second place in our Startup Global pitch competition. So we're very excited to have her here today. And we also have Adrienne Crampton, who is the director at NeuroSphere. So first up, I'll invite Azadeh to share her story and kick us off.
Thank you very much for having me today. Hello, everyone. I'm Azadeh Dastmalchi, CEO and co-founder of a startup named VitalTracer. At VitalTracer, we're concentrating on different wearables and different form factors to measure different vital signs. But currently that we move forward is a patch. And so it's a hardware class 2 medical, which has optical sensors and ECGs, and it uses a disposable ECG electrode pad to go on a human body, which is a chest. And the technology is designed and under the validation and clinical trial at St. Justin Hospital. So it's for the age 1, not for newborn, age 1 to age 21 for children, which measure almost all vital signs, including Holter ECG, heart rate variability, respiratory rate, oxygen saturation, and skin temperature, as well as it has a gyroscope and accelerometer for activity tracker and sleep analysis. As I mentioned, it's class 2 technology, so we are in the process of running clinical trial to get the FDA and Health Canada for it. And the technology actually starts on very old days, 2010, when my dad was diagnosed with a high blood pressure, and he hates the technology for the cuff device, which is inflate and deflate. And at that time, I was just starting my master, and I was looking for a thesis topic to work on it. So I was trying to have a cuffless blood pressure using optical sensor and AI algorithm. And then we moved forward as a part of that technology to my PhD. And then I established a company, went to different accelerators and incubators nationally. But our headquarters located right now in Montreal, Quebec. And we were able to raise $2 million from government grant and $2 million loved money, which is family and friend loan without interest, I can say. And working with different universities and hospitals to sell the technology to researcher as an investigation technology. So the technology is including the hardware, which is this one, and the transfer that smartphone, and then from smartphone to the online platform. So instead of nurse measuring different vital signs for the patients, they can use the patch on the chest, and then even they can send them home. So it's very useful for the patient located in hospital and home for vital sign monitoring. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much. That was great. And I'll pass it over to Adrienne next.
Hi, everyone. Good to meet you. Thank you for all the cameras on. It's exciting. It's always more fun on Zoom when we can see faces. So I'll take a totally different twist. I'm the director of an innovation accelerator that's really focused on neuroscience innovation. We're under the McGill University umbrella. Originally, we were born from a large neuroinformatics and neuroscience grant that they received back in 2017 called Healthy Brain, Healthy Lives. And that was really to build out the infrastructure of neuroscience, building on a global expertise they already had at the university. A couple years in, they really realized, wow, if we centralize innovation activities, we can create a group, we can create an innovation accelerator, and then really make that the focus of driving forward academic born research towards market. So what our group is really focused on is bringing innovation from the lab to the market, be it through startup creation or be it through developing technologies for license and those types of opportunities, or also creating sustainability for large infrastructures. So, imaging facilities and things like that are in institutional settings, but they're not necessarily run by individuals who have a business mindset. So they're not being run as sustainable businesses. It's, okay, what grant can I get to survive? Not, how do I just create a business structure that can make me operationally efficient and sustainable? So really startup creation, license creation, and then infrastructure sustainability is kind of the 3 pillars that we work on. We also really focus on developing a culture and a community of entrepreneurship and innovation. So that's the fun part. That's where a lot of the programs come in, the networking opportunities, workshops, skill building, because again, founders that are coming from an academic background, a more science-oriented background, don't necessarily always have the skill sets. I see I see Laura shaking her head. You've not necessarily been given the opportunity to develop those skill sets. And so bringing in that complementary skill set or opportunity to learn them, but also bringing in opportunities to maybe get matched with a business student. So we created some programs where we'll provide financing to business students to intern with our supported startups to bring that complementary value add to these young spinoffs. So that's a little bit about us. On a more personal note, my background's in kinesiology. I did my bachelor's in that, and then I pivoted to sports management. I was an athlete in my earlier life, and I thought I was going to go in that route, and then I decided, no, there's huge clinical gaps. I was recovering from a really complicated career-ending injury in the field of traumatic brain injury. And so I decided I'm going to go do a PhD in neuroscience in that field specifically. And I was working with health technologies. And that's what got me into the world of health tech innovation. I was working with a lot of eye tracking devices, and it just kind of opened up that world. And I knew that I wanted to carve out a career bridging academia and industry, because the two worlds have such complementary resources. One is finding and answering a lot of questions. The other one has resources and the capacity to pull it out into the world. And also, just generally, you can mix the two and be a spin out. So that's just a little bit about me.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Adrienne. And it's so nice, both those expert talks kind of show like the real heart of entrepreneurship, which is finding something you're passionate about and using that to propel your business. So that's amazing. Thank you both so much. So we'll now open it up for the panel discussion. Just a quick reminder again, for those that are comfortable, we definitely invite you to keep your cameras on, raise your hand to ask questions to the panelists, and also you can ask some questions in the chat or the Q&A function as well if you're more comfortable doing that way. But I'll now pass it over to our moderator, Isabel Nolan, who is the Director of Programs here at Startup Canada, and she'll kick off today's conversation. But thank you so much.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Miriam. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to see you all. And hope you're having a good rest of your, or good start to your Thursday. I will take us through our panel discussion, which will last about 50 minutes or so. I think Miriam mentioned that we have quite a few questions drafted out for our speakers, but always want to give priority to our attendees here today and ensure that you get the opportunity to ask any questions that you were hoping to get answered today, or pieces of advice that you'd like with maybe a current roadblock that you have. So you'll hear me say that a few times because I really want people to feel comfortable with asking their questions. So wonderful to see so many people with their cameras on today. So you can just use the raise hand function, or you can ask it in the chat, and I can ask on your behalf. But I'll kick it off to kind of get the conversation started. And so Azadeh, I'd love to talk about, your journey through, starting within the Canadian market and now expanding to other global markets. Can you talk about maybe some of the key strategies for expanding VitalTracer into those international markets, and maybe challenges or opportunities that you didn't anticipate?
Yeah, before we choose to expand internationally, we were make sure that we are well established national wise. And for international, we had a different like a marketing strategy to find that where is who's all our competitors and where are they located and why they were located that specific countries or region, and how should we differentiate ourselves very well. And on the other side, Canada is establishing a very amazing, unique relationship with the different countries abroad through the Canadian Trade Commissioners and different programs like G20, and lots of other Gs. But at that case, I was able to go to different countries like Japan, South Korea, Philippines, Vietnam, Taiwan. So it's more Asian side. And then the other one, of course, US. And we went through the different accelerator and incubators like international tour in Europe as well. And then in GCC region, which is Middle East, Gulf countries. So it's Arab countries who have a lot of money. And then so we came up with the different regulations that they have to establish like selling the devices to the market, who is going to be the buyer, who's going to be the payer, and what are their regulatory or cybersecurity rules and regulations, and what we need to know, how we can establish the business there, and sales and taxes. And then we talk with the different international well-known firms for the marketing, that what should be the best. And then this is how we decide to, after North of America, which is locally in Canada and the US, then we will go after Middle East for sure.
And were there any specific challenges that you faced like getting there, like to these new markets? Sorry, Azadeh, that was my follow-up question too. Got it.
Yeah, so in terms of challenges, of course, it's always there are challenges, pros and cons. So in the region that I choose, so we started with the IP and patent. So we were make sure that we establish international patents for the specific countries, crystal clear, and it's like how we can establish a company, how we can partner with different hospitals, and then the rules and regulations for cybersecurity and health system. Those are like specifically for Middle East GCC region. They do not have any specific rules and regulations yet. And they do accept FDA, which is a very good point. And we have to first get FDA and then go to those countries. But right now they're trying to establish like a health department for their regulations, which is not clear what they want. That's a bit time consuming and challenging in that aspect.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I mean, it's great that they take through the FDA, but it sounds like there's gray areas at the moment that are difficult for you to navigate. So I can understand that's probably a little bit frustrating for you. And Adrienne, can you talk about how entrepreneurs can leverage Canada's innovation ecosystem to facilitate their international expansion?
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's tons of different ways that you can do that. The most important way is really being active on different networking portals. So, you know, LinkedIn being one of them, but also face-to-face networking. I think we stopped getting used to that during COVID, but it's really valuable, especially when you're thinking of developing international relationships. There's a lot of people, yes, that are not here geographically that we have to take Zoom calls for, but there's a lot of representatives that are here or that are closer to us. So prioritizing, maybe reaching out, making time for a coffee, setting up a meeting, and having those in-person discussions, I find that it fosters really strong relationships. There's also trade commissioners that are useful to just create passive leads, right? So when I think of, you know, different strategies, I always think of what can I do that's active, but what can I put in place so that I'm also passively getting relationships coming my way, so that it's a two-way street and we're not just kind of spreading us super thin. So there's lots of organizations that you can be a part of. Are there certain groups, you know, for me, women in tech, women in bio, those are groups that really kind of have a great community, and that will, once you meet and once you've kind of invested the time to meet and build relationships, all of us are trying to help one another out. If we meet somebody that we think could be valuable, then we're just connecting each other all the time. And so that's kind of, it's active at first, but then it becomes passive. So I think identifying the groups that are most relevant to you, spending your time and energy in those priority groups, and then you can give yourself a timeline every so often in the year to do a bit of a prospection. So, that's kind of how I call it, is maybe twice a year. There's so many new organizations popping up all the time that it's hard to keep track of, and it's easy to get outdated. So either me or one of my team members will do a quick screen. Has anybody new resurfaced? Is anybody that used to be there no longer relevant? So that you can constantly iterate and, be most useful with your efforts. Also, do I have needs that are funding oriented? Is it more connection oriented? Is it more, I need in-kind manpower? So depending on those needs, you can identify different resources for those needs. There's provincial, there's municipal, there's federal, and then there's international. So again, see what's most relevant for you at this time. And then on that roadmap that we all inevitably have when we're a company, we have a roadmap for growth and progression. Maybe it's a regulatory one overlaid with our burn rate. Well, overlay that also with programs that you want to tap into, because then you have that visibility of who do I need to connect with at which time, what application do I need to kind of prepare at which time, and you really have that full timeline in one place. So you have all your to-dos. And there's also really neat resources that are popping up, because it's hard for you to keep track of all these things. But I was at an event the other day, and there's this young startup called Happily AI. And that, I'll drop it in the chat. I don't know if anybody's familiar with it, but it's right now it's for free. And, you can be exposed to different funding opportunities. You can put in the filters the characteristics and attributes of your company, what the needs are. And they even have resources to help you actually write the grants. So that's also a barrier. Sometimes you find something and you just go, I don't have the bandwidth. So they almost have funding catalysts, right, to help you apply for these opportunities.
Brilliant. Yeah, we're very familiar with Thierry, I think he's co-founder or founder of Happily. He actually pitched alongside Azadeh last month. So can very much attest to the wonderful work that they're doing. Laura, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so great advice. Azadeh, like fantastic learning about your successes and how you were strategic about growing global, and some of the challenges, and normally that regulatory landscape always poses challenges, especially in this industry. But Adrienne, I was going to say, I had things to say about being strategic, and then you pulled it out. But I find that being with Startup Global for the year, and actually being on the Across Canada tour and meeting with startups and having multiple events throughout the year with entrepreneurs and startups, I feel like there's so much out there, and there's so much for you to navigate, and you can't take part in every industry circle or every program. So Adrienne, you mentioned it's beautiful, assess it, look to see the ones that will provide you with the most benefit, and whether that's benefit in terms of introductions to others or introductions in the market. So I heard Azadeh, you mentioned the Trade Commissioner Service, and then Adrienne, you mentioned don't forget to, so that's federal, but also don't forget the your provincial governments, because whether it's the Trade Commissioner Service or provincial governments, sometimes at the municipal level, they have priority sectors. And often, it could be health tech, med tech. So look, get connected, because you will, if you are connected with that trade commissioner or that trade advisor, whether it's federal or provincial, you will find out about these trade missions. So when I worked in the clean tech space for many years, we were very well connected both federally and provincially, but we often found out about those trade missions from the provincial government because the clean tech was a priority sector. So we would find out first, and you had a limited, amount of time, and it was first come, first serve, because they might only take 8 provincial companies to that prominent trade show. And so your cost of participate to play, your cost of taking part in a trade show under your provincial or federal umbrella is a fraction. It's like 1/10 of the cost of doing it alone, of having a booth. So I'm so glad you mentioned that, because often it's overlooked, the support that's available at the multiple levels of government, not just at the federal level.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Laura, for chiming in on that piece. We actually have a question from Simin and Azadeh. They're directed towards you. So they've sort of 2 questions. So the first question is, do you provide devices to actual patients, or is this partnerships with hospitals and clinics? And then the second question is if you can talk about the challenges on HIPAA and privacy regulations.
Yeah, sure. So things that we are not selling, we are not B2C, we are selling B2B. And the business that we are selling is whether hospitals or clinic, private or public. So we are selling the technology as a hardware, and then we have a SaaS models for them for subscriptions as well. For compliance, actually, very interesting question. So the system that we are using for cybersecurity, because it has a very different complications, we are using a third party to do our cybersecurity and compliance. And on that case, that's like make our shoulder less heavy. And on the other hand, we are also using hospital server. So in that case, that's what especially in Canada, they love it, because they're going to be more responsible about all the kind of attack, hacks, and those things. But be aware that beside the country by country, because HIPAA is for US and most of the world, like Middle East, they also accept HIPAA compliance, but in Canada, it's PIPEDA. And then another things that you need to be aware that, as an example of Canada and United States, each province and state have their own rules and regulations. Beside the cybersecurity, it's patient privacy informations. And they may also have unwritten or hidden rules and regulations for each hospital as well. So you need to talk with the different hospital for each province, the way that we did like hospitals. And in different IT department and cybersecurity team and biomedical department as well. So those are the tech team who's gonna say yes or no to buy our technology, basically. And so for the 3, we start with the 3 different, the main province, and then for the state, also 3 states. So it's not like all nationally Canada and then all nationally US and then move to internationally GCC.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, Simin, I hope that answered your question, and really great question as well. So a reminder, if anyone has any questions at all, please feel free to come on camera, or you can ask it in the chat and I'll ask on your behalf. But we've talked a little bit about Azadeh, you started off in the Canadian market and now you're expanding. Can you walk us through like what that research looked like for you? How did you choose to go to these different markets? and what helped you to kind of decide to go to those next?
So I was trying to attend in different networkings that Adrienne mentioned through the Canadian Trade Commissioners Program. So I went to the different countries talking with the different key opinion leaders for different hospitals and that countries. Like we went to Japan, 2 different cities, Tokyo, and the other one is not in my brain right now. But and then we went to the GCC region, different countries, different hospitals. And we try to have a partnership with them to see that which one's gonna move smoother or less complex. And that's one way that we choose it. But on the other hand, the culture also is very important, with their company culture and the country culture, that they accept the technology, let's say it this way. So it's like in the families, in a hospital settings. As an example, we try to enter, before we start trying to enter the market for children, we started for elderly, which is the market is much more larger. And we started here in Montreal with the one geriatric center, but all the patients suffer from dementia. All the data, they don't have any electronic health records. So it's everything on pen and paper and hard copy. And then we figure out that, oh, for public senior homes, it's very early in Canada to run it. And then we figure out a couple of other issues with the patient for elderly compared with the children. So we said, okay, that would be much more easier for us to enter first children. And then when we get much more better, we can go for the elderly and expand it on that market.
Interesting. Okay, that's great. That's interesting how you kind of navigated those challenges. And Adrienne, to you as well, you know, when you're working with these businesses, what advice do you give them when they are about to start, you know, conducting this market research, identifying different markets that they can expand to?
Yeah, something that's really interesting, and it's a bit of a, like, I'll share a case study, but one of our startup companies had a technology that was a software that integrated into like a medical device, right? That was used in hospital settings. And then when looking, okay, well, what's the best approach? Where should I go to first? Something really important was globally, who uses what technology in their settings? Because from a procurement standpoint, but also a clinical integration standpoint, it was really important to prioritize the settings that had the hardware technology that really was easy to integrate the software technology at the level at which it was currently, so that we could just really fluidly start getting that clinical validation, and also that feasibility data, and just kind of good visibility on scale up, right? So for them, they actually picked a couple European countries because they realized that in European countries, the medical settings that they were targeting had these companies' technology that were very, very easy to integrate their software into, whereas other geographical regions had other ones that would have created a few more bumps in the road. So I think just thinking of, especially because we're talking about digital health, it's, well, how quickly and how easily, how fluid is that market entry? Where? And then prioritizing that, but also looking at the economic situations in each, right? So who does have the means to buy the technology, depending on whether it's, you know, B2B or B2C, whether the user is the buyer. So these are all considerations that you have to have. But I just found that with that particular startup, it was really interesting. And it was so important to look at that, because in my mind, my first question was, well, why don't you go to the US? They're like, no, because the US, we would have these barriers. And I go, great, okay, you've done your research and you've looked at these elements of clinical integration.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. And yeah, Laura, I saw your question there, but looks like Azadeh has replied to you there about your team size at 10 people. That's still a small team for the amazing work that you're doing. So I'm going to take a guess and think that, sorry, Paolo, you have a question, please.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much. You mentioned that some countries very well regulated, let's say Canada, province by province, states, maybe each state, and some other countries, there's no regulations or they're very on their infancy in terms of trying to regulate it. I would assume that it's easier to be on a market without regulations because right now here we just got everything to run in Ontario and we need approval from Ontario Health, Ontario MD, and I'm already tired. And when I think about, okay, I'm going to Alberta next, now I need to get everything in Alberta and then going to States. Is it true? Like in a less regulated market, is it easier or it becomes more complex because then there's no rules for you to follow and then you're kind of lost? Okay, if it's not regulated, what do I do now?
Okay, so let me correct what I said or emphasize that it doesn't mean that they don't follow any rules and regulations. So the countries that they don't have like a Health Canada or FDA written versions, it means that you definitely first have to get the FDA for sure. And then you go to that countries and then for that ones, it has its pros and cons. So it's good that they don't have a like state by state or city by city or province by province, different rules and regulation. But it means that as an example of Saudi Arabia, they just established Saudi FDA. So it means that maybe in the next year, they're coming with so they accept HIPAA compliance, but maybe for the next year, they come up with another additional rules and regulations that is not there yet. So if you want to enter, then there might be a more surprises that you are not well known about them. So but on the other hand, yes, when I dig down on all the rules and regulations for Canada for private privacy informations, we are establishing Quebec. I found that the Quebec is the toughest. Was like, okay, if I can handle in Quebec, I can go everywhere. It's like the rest should be okay for me. But it's still any country that you want to establish, you have to run at least a small pilot study for them to give them a peace of mind that you can run based on their own rules and regulations and that their physical and cultural and everything's there. So it doesn't mean that they don't have a rules and regulations. No, it means that you might have a surprises sooner or later and be aware or be ready for those kind of surprises.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Question, Paolo. I was wondering the same. So thank you for walking us through that, Azadeh. So I would love to touch on funding. And I'm sure that there's a lot of people here on the call today that are also curious about the different types of funding that are available to businesses within this space. So Azadeh, maybe I'll go to you first again in terms of what avenues of funding have you gone down, what has worked, what hasn't worked. Yeah.
Yeah, so for nationally, when we established the company, we started with a $100 competition inside the universities, like student poster competitions, really. We start with the $100 and $200. And then we applied for every single grant that we are aware of. And I'm still finding different grants and competitions through my LinkedIn connections, like, oh, another startup got won for a first or second prize of one competitions that I was not aware of. So I have an Excel sheet and add whatever I entered and accepted, or I would like they reject my application, and whether there is a reason or feedback behind it or not. And then there are couples for the next year. So I have a very huge Excel about that. And regarding the grants, like before the first one that I get, I was rejected maybe 100 times. So I don't give up. Like never give up. So they should be something. I have to make it possible. And so the first one started with my tax. The my tax rate of accepting your application and awards like a matching fund, it's like, I believe 99%. Because there are a business advisor there who is helping you and review your application to make sure that you're gonna receive that grant. And like since COVID time, you can invest in yourself if you're a student. So you can hire yourself for a 1 year or 2 years. And that's a very great start. And then my tax, NSERC, IRAP, NRC, which is National Resource Canada, Can Export, they are all have not only national, but also lots of international program that they support. Like for Can Export, you can get, if you are a startup with no revenue, you can go for up to 75K grant to cover your travel and marketing things for the next year. But the only things that you need to be aware, most of the government grants, fiscal year finished by the end of the March and their first year starting April 1st. But it means that you have to establish with the advisor like 3 months before. As an example of IRAP, if you have a technical advisor, you need to start talking with him or her from January to write a grant review by him or her, upload your things, and then you are gonna receive it, because when they finish it, they open it right away. All the money goes in a week or 2. So these are the things that I did, I can say.
Fantastic. So it's mostly been non-dilutive funding that you've gone with.
$2 million in Quebec. They call us the queen of grants. Yeah. Whenever there is a free money, I'm gonna be there. Or if I'm not there, next year.
That is incredible. And so is that your plan for now, is to continue down that avenue, or do you have plans to start to find investors to start investing with you with dilutive funding?
Yes, definitely. So we are waiting for the first initial of our clinical trials, the initial clinical trials, and after that we are gonna open our round in Q2 2021 for the investors. But it's not even nationally, because Canadian investors, they are very conservative. So whether you go to US or go to other countries that you may have a better networking, for myself, GCC.
Excellent. Well, I mean, if you got 2 million in non-dilutive, then I can only imagine the amount you're going to raise when you enter that round. Adrienne, are there any other Canadian based, I know obviously you're within Quebec as well, like funding programs or funding opportunities that you can recommend to entrepreneurs in this space?
There are quite a few, and I would probably take up the rest of this call's time if I were to list them all. So somebody I see just dropped Fundica in the chat, and I think that that's super relevant. I think going to somewhere that really is like their service is to kind of filter through these opportunities for you is worthwhile. It's a good use of your time. There's also here in Quebec, with the Conseil de l'Innovation du Québec, there's conseillère attestée, so innovation consultant. So for example, I took the course to become an innovation consultant. You can find innovation consultants stratified by geographical area across the province that you can link up with. And by virtue of doing the certification, we have access to a portal where we can put in filters with the attributes of the company that's reaching out to us for support and what they're looking for, be it funding, be it services, be it in-kind support or networking support. And it'll spit out recommendations that consultant can send your way. So that's a great resource in Quebec. But outside of Quebec and more Canadian-wide, I would definitely spend the time engaging with something like Fundica just to look at everything out there before you start getting your feet wet with a certain opportunity, just to make sure that you're going after the right one. There's a lot of opportunities that only provide a little bit of funding. Something that we notice is a lot of opportunities exist for R&D, but sometimes that has to be that has a lot of limitations. And then there's few opportunities that exist that can really just put, you know, no strings attached money into your company's bank account. And so I would caution you to go after the ones that are really small amounts, but that really take a lot of bandwidth and work, and find the ones that are maybe a little bit higher in value, and invest time and effort in those ones, because or else you'll just see time flying by if you're trying to kind of go and get the little amounts everywhere.
That's a great point. And I've heard quite a few founders say that like applying for grants, finding them, writing them, it is a full-time job in itself. And so yeah, you definitely want to be strategic with the ones that you are spending time on.
And the one thing I would add is it's, I think, an emerging trend, because I've only met a couple groups that do this. And I mentioned it with Happily, but I also found a group out west that did this, and it was a very early stage VC group that had a couple team members that were called funding catalysts. And so these people will help to write the grants for you, because potentially your company is at too early of a stage, but they're interested. And a lot of early stage investors are always like, oh yeah, keep us posted, send us updates every 6 months. But you don't actually know how serious they are. But then a couple really early stage ones are realizing, if we help them get more non-dilutive funding, that's in our best interest. Because if we're genuinely interested in them, us helping them get more non-dilutive will help them get towards the milestones we're looking for, and they won't be diluted. So I would encourage you to look into some of the early stage investors, if that's the route you're taking, and see if they have team members or if they offer that service, because again, then your team doesn't have to do it. They can just kind of give them the information, and then they can put the wheels in motion and help to write those grants.
Excellent. If you can recall the name of that, I'm very interested to learn about them. Yeah, what a great lead generation for them as well, right? Like that's it almost feels like a no-brainer now that you've said that.
Yeah.
Laura, yeah.
Yeah, I'm dropping them in the chat.
Brilliant, thank you. Laura, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't hear that. I was just gonna say, and it's like a common theme over the years, actually, not just this year, but a lot of companies, a lot of startups, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of effort to find the programs, to raise money, to write those applications. But I just want to caution everybody, and because we've gone that route before, I have in the past, where we had someone write the application. I ended up rewriting it, because somebody doesn't know your business as much as you do. So you have to put in the work at first to really to strategize and figure out what you're going to do, like in terms of market expansion, especially if you're applying to a program like Can Export funding. So you have to have that international sales and marketing plan, or that export plan, that market expansion plan. You have to have all those sections answered, have a clear idea of what your strategy is, have that research done so that you know that in this market, your customer base, like if you're B2B, your customer base is this vertical, but in this market, my customer base is a completely different vertical, or maybe I go B2C in one market, but I go B2B in the other. And so you have to really put in that work, do that research, and have that clear plan. Then you can take it. You can either write the application yourself, because you're kind of taking what you've already done in your international business plan, and you're putting it into the fields that they're requiring for that funding. So I remember years ago, I did a complete international sales and marketing plan. We sent it to the funding agency, and they came back to us and said, oh my God, if every company did this, was this prepared, my job would be so much easier. And that was the fund, administrator. And we actually took that same blueprint and we took it to the bank, literally took it to the bank. And the bank said as well, wow, this is, I can see where, the direction that your company's taking, and you've taken care to figure out, all those critical steps. So I just want to caution people to think that they can just hand it over to some of these fund grant writers and they're going to spit out a perfect application. I just caution you, you really have to be in that driver's seat.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Laura. We are almost at the wrap-up time to finish with our panel section. So I want to throw it out there to any of our attendees. If you have any questions for our speakers, anything we've talked about that you'd maybe like a little bit more clarification on, please do let me know. Otherwise, I can ask one or two more of my questions that I have myself and Miriam drafted out. All right, we'll continue on with my questions that I have. So let me see. I think it would be great to talk about, when we're talking about going global, going into new markets, and obviously, you do due diligence and market research. But especially if you aren't going to be headquartering in these new markets, any advice or best strategies for fostering partnerships or collaborations with either international organizations or very specific local researchers in these new markets. Adrienne and Azadeh, I'll kind of throw that out to both of you.
I can jump on the researchers one, since that's where we're really the space that we're working in. I would find a liaison. If you're looking for scientific expertise in an institutional setting, a lot of the times if you directly reach out to the scientific expert, so, the PI/researcher, you might not get an answer. A lot of them are, at 150% bandwidth already, and they might not respond to somebody that they don't know, or that, they don't have context on the request. So finding an individual through, an accelerator program that's maybe in-house. The tech transfer office often has industry liaison officers. There's hubs at different hospitals. So there's often either a manager of innovation, a manager of, even if their title has clinical trials and you don't want clinical trials, well, maybe just reach out to them and then they can point you in the right direction. So try to find an internal champion that can then make an introduction to the expert that you've already identified. Or if you know that that center or that institution has the expertise, but you don't really know who yet, well, you can even set up a call with this person and they have visibility on all the experts, right? So then they can say, oh yeah, I know that so-and-so is working specifically within this indication, and they would be interesting to connect with. What are your needs? And something that's really useful, because people do reach out to me with these requests, well, I'll say, can you write me the specific request that you're asking? Because if it's just, oh, can you connect me with so-and-so, even if I make that introduction, it won't work. It's, I would love to engage with your lab on this. Our company is building this technology, and right now we'd like to work on this specific element. Or if it's validation or whatever the case may be, just a really short blurb that this person, as I would be, can just forward on and bring context to the conversation, but really keeps the email short as well.
Excellent points there. And Azadeh, any going on from that as well, any researchers or organization partnership tips?
Yeah, for us, it's always we go through the Canadian Trade Commissioners. For any country that you want to enter, you can go to the Canadian Trade Commissioner of that in Canada for that country. And then they can do all very deep due diligence. But I highly encourage you first do your due diligence first to figure out that whether that partner, third-party organization, or different medical distributors who contact you to want to buy your product or be your distributors or partner, you first do your due diligence, your search as much as possible, and then go to Canadian Trade Commissioners, because this is one of their job, just so you know, to do that. And they do their job and then come up with their due diligence and some recommendations. And another things that I highly recommend, again, that these Canadian Trade Commissioners, they have accelerators, CTA, Canadian Accelerator Technology, and they train you for like a different workshops. As an example that we went for the Mexico, they train you for Mexican, like everything doing business in Mexico or in Japan that we went. And then they set up B2B meetings that you want. For example, we say that we want a manufacturer who have a ISO 13485 as a medical device, who can build our prototype to make it designed for manufacture and make it mass production. And then they recommend based on the trustable informations or partners that they have. This is how I did my way.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Laura, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to add great advice, perfect advice. If you're looking for collaboration, partnership, don't overlook the foreign representatives in Canada. So if you're interested in, I don't know, the European Union, for example, they have the consulates that are located, you know, typically like Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, as well. They often have like their export promotion agencies. They'll have one for Canada. So you can reach out to the local office and find out about any events or matchmaking that's more of a collaborative angle. Like you can never go to a foreign trade office, and I worked for one for over a decade. You can't go to a foreign trade office and say, I want to export to your country. They're not going to help you. But if it's about collaboration and matching technology, maybe there's a need for your specific technology in an international market. So you know, you might want to look at that and see what kind of events they're hosting, and then maybe go to a networking event, because especially in the technology space, there's more opportunity to collaborate and to partner.
Excellent point. Thank you so much, Laura. And I mean, speaking of networking, I think now is a great time for us to go into those networking breakout rooms. And you know, I always say you really never know what can come out of a conversation. You know, someone could be connected to someone that you are looking to get connected to, or you might have a roadblock at the moment and someone else in the room has gone through the very same thing as you or something similar, and they have advice that they can offer you. So I'm going to pass it back over to Miriam to talk through how this exactly will work. But we very much encourage you to stay for this part, as it's I think the most valuable part of it is getting to meet each other and seeing if there's any way we can collaborate or work together or just even support each other. So Miriam, back to you.